Imagine waking up on a crisp morning in Rome, 43 BC. You walk to the Forum expecting the usual bustle of merchants and senators, but instead, you find a crowd gathered around a series of white wooden boards. You push through the whispering, trembling citizens and look at the names written in fresh, black ink. At the top, it says, "The Public Enemies of Rome." And there, between a famous general and a wealthy merchant, you see it. Your name. In that heartbeat, you are no longer a citizen. You have no rights, no property, and no protection. In fact, your life now has a price tag. Anyone, your slave, your neighbor, even your own son, can kill you and bring your severed head to the city center to collect a bag of silver. This wasn't a nightmare. This was the reality of the proscriptions, a state-sponsored human hunt that turned the eternal city into a literal slaughterhouse. Today, we look at the darkest chapter of Roman politics, where the law didn't protect you, it hunted you. Who would do such a thing? After the assassination of Julius Caesar, Rome was a power vacuum. 3 men stepped into it: Octavian, the young heir; Mark Antony, the seasoned general; and Lepidus, the wealthy politician. They called themselves the Second Triumvirate. But to wage war against Caesar's assassins, they needed 2 things: absolute power and massive amounts of money. The proscriptions solved both. By marking their political rivals as enemies of the state, they could legally execute them and seize their vast estates. But there was a darker side to this pact. The 3 men began trading the lives of their own families to appease each other. Antony agreed to kill his uncle. Lepidus agreed to kill his own brother. Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, initially resisted, but eventually he signed the lists with the same cold indifference as the others. No one was safe. If you were rich, you were a target. If you were a rival, you were a corpse. The lists grew longer every day, eventually including over 300 senators and 2,000 knights. Once the lists were posted, the gates of Rome were locked. No one was allowed to leave. The city became a cage. The reward for a head was 25,000 drachmae for a free man and 10,000 for a slave, plus their freedom. Imagine the psychological horror. The person who served your wine, the person you shared your bed with, were all looking at you and calculating your value in silver. The stories from this period are bone-chilling. One senator hid in a sewer for days, only to be betrayed by the smell of his own perfume. Another was found hiding in a pile of hay. His own slaves pushed their spears into the mound until they heard a scream. But perhaps the most wicked part was the subversion of the Roman family. Children were seen bringing the heads of their fathers to the triumvirs. Wives, eager to marry new pro-triumvirate husbands, pointed out their husbands' hiding places in the rafters. The social fabric of Rome didn't just tear, it disintegrated into a bloody mess of greed and betrayal. No death during the proscriptions was more symbolic than that of Marcus Tullius Cicero. He was Rome's greatest orator, a man who believed in the Republic and the power of words. But Mark Antony hated him with a passion that transcended politics. Cicero tried to flee, but he was tired, old, and disillusioned. When the assassins caught up to his litter, he didn't struggle. He leaned his head out and told them, "There is nothing proper about what you are doing, soldier, but do try to kill me properly." They cut off his head. But Antony wasn't satisfied with just his death. He wanted to humiliate the very idea of free speech. Cicero's head and his hands, the hands that wrote the speeches against Antony, were nailed to the rostra, the speaker's platform in the Forum. Legend says that Antony's wife, Fulvia, took her golden hairpin and repeatedly stabbed Cicero's tongue, mocking the man who could no longer speak. It was the ultimate message. In the new Rome, Your words could not save you. They would only get your tongue pierced and your head displayed like a trophy. The proscriptions eventually ended, but the Rome that emerged was a different world. The old aristocracy was decapitated, literally. The men who survived were those who were too quiet to be noticed or too loyal to be killed. When Octavian eventually became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, he presented himself as a man of peace. But the foundation of his golden age was built on the bones of the 2,000 men he had agreed to murder in his youth. The psychological scars lasted for generations. Romans learned that their neighbors could be their executioners. They learned that the law was a weapon. The eternal city was haunted by the ghosts of the Forum, by the smell of blood that had soaked into the stones of the rostra. The proscriptions remind us that the thinnest line in history is the one between civilization and state-sponsored savagery. History is often told by the victors, but the stones of Rome tell a different story. A story of lists, of blades, and of the silence that follows a purge. If you found this journey into Rome's darkest hour fascinating, subscribe to the dark side of history. We don't just tell you what happened, we show you the shadows they tried to hide. Because some names should never be forgotten, especially those written in ink that turned to blood.